Welcome to Monarchist Minute, Royalist news and discussion out of the good old US of A. I am Charles York. Joining me tonight is, of course, our regular Darth Kilhoun, Victor Smith, and Aiden Halberg. He doesn't hop in as often as he mayhap should, but we'll force him to correct that. He's like, you can forgive him. He's about 4 hours behind us, so he's an Alaskan. They exist apparently. Anyways.
It dox me.
What are they gonna? Even if I gave you your direct address, it would take them a month to actually get out there to stalk you.
Yeah, but there's only 5 people that live up here, It wouldn't be hard for them to figure out.
Yeah, but also it's like Alaska is about a third of the size of the continental United States in terms of landmass, so you could just hide.
Yeah,
the trees will start speaking Alaskan.
Yep.
Well, anyways, yeah.
Actually, that brings up a funny story that I have, a quick anecdote, if you don't mind, before we get fully started. I had a Spanish teacher. I had a Spanish teacher once, way back when I was in high school, who decided to troll some tourists who came to Alaska because they had the tenacity to ask her, will we be able to use our U.S. money here, or should we go to a bank and get it changed for Alaskan money? So, of course, she told them, yes, you need to go to the bank right now and get it transferred over.
But the exchange rates were good that year, I hope?
Oh, they were.
Like almost 1-to-1, like parity levels,
Yeah, it's quite weird about that. It was almost an exact parity.
Man, those were I think the Alaskans even got in trouble because every time that we came up with a new quarter design or whatever, the Alaskans would just copy it and not like even pay the Federal Reserve anything for the design. Charles has gone too far. Okay, so now that the real audience can dox me, or the live studio audience can dox me. Anyways, so we have 4 topics to discuss. Okay. We have 4 topics to discuss. Firstly, we have some updates on what's going on in the war in the Ukraine and all that fun, not fun stuff. And then we're going to talk about what's going on in Cali, which which somehow actually relates to what's going on with the whole Ukraine thing in a backwards way, thanks to Putin's speech. And then we're going to talk about some more Iran/Persia/ the country that's east of the Middle East, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll be recommending books for people to read because, I want to let you know, guys, that I haven't read as much as I should, and I'm trying to rectify that situation. So, we're going to start off with Ukraine, which is probably, 20-30% of our airtime on Monarchist Minute these days?
Unfortunately, but...
Yeah. I will reiterate my position previously. Could we stop killing, and whoever's going to actually end up winning this war, could you win it soon? Okay, so there's a lot to unpack. Originally, this started out in our little podcaster chat where we formulate topics to control them, manipulate the mass. Oh no, I said the quiet part out loud. Anyways, where we talk about what we're actually going to talk about. Anyways, where we talk about that stuff, originally it was supposed to be Nord Stream, and then just on the course of today, everything kind of escalated. So Putin made a speech, which apparently was pretty rousing, and he said some things. President Zelensky has decided to file for joint for expedient entrance into NATO, because why the heck not? And the speech was tied in with the whole annexation referendums and all of that. So I'm gonna let somebody. I'm gonna open up to total chaos here. I'm gonna let somebody pick something that they want to particularly talk about and start off. 1, 2, 3, fight.
Okay, so let's talk about the big part in this. All of you are going to have to update your maps now because Novorossiya, the ancient province of the Russian Empire that was first integrated under Catherine the Great, has been brought back into the fold of Russia through referendums. I'm not going to make a value judgment on the legitimacy of referendums because I don't view any democratic anything as legitimate. But I do view the annexation as legitimate. That doesn't go for the monarchists of America. That just goes for myself. Um, but overall, these provinces show or oblasts of formerly part of Ukraine that are ethnically Russian decide to join Russia. It was pretty much a consensus. Most of them were in the 90% tiles for voting, according to the records. There's a big celebrations all across Russia. I mean, it seems very popular, and it doesn't seem astroturfed because it does just seem like average people, like a lot of like families, like moms bringing their children to like celebrations and stuff. It doesn't seem like it's astroturfed, unlike demonstrations here in the West where you can't even get 100 people to show up for Joe Biden. Um, there's actually like some energy in Russia, so yeah, there's that. Um, the war is. I don't want to make a value judgment on the war, but now officially the Russian army can enter those oblasts that joined Russia because now they're official Russian territory. The conscript army and not the volunteer army were the ones fighting in Ukraine this entire time. The conscript army, by law, is not allowed to operate outside of Russia except for in times of war. And if Ukraine decides to make another counteroffensive into now what is considered Russian territory, that will be considered an assault upon Russian lands and is an instant declaration of war. Kind of like, I mean, you can just imagine with any country, you invade a country, you're in a state of war. It's pretty no duh situation. And with the partial mobilization already underway, there, I expect that with the Rasputitsa season, that's the season where essentially the time in the year where everything turns to mud because it goes into a heavy downpour. It's like essentially their wet season, and well, Russian vehicles are designed to operate in the Rasputitsa season, but vehicles that are coming from the western side are not really designed for that type of like deep, thick clay-like mud that develops that time of year. And that's the thing that like stalled the Wehrmacht for like several months during World War II was the Rasputitsa until the winter, which in the winter you can kind of start making offensives again, but you can't really make any new defensive lines in the winter because imagine trying to dig dig through literally negative degrees of like you have snow, it's frigid cold, etc. You're not going to be digging fighting positions in that situation. Um yeah, so for whatever this means, it will um I don't think it will like necessarily matter in terms of like the war unless they can bring in their conscript army. If they do, then I highly doubt Ukraine can actually keep up the fight, and the Rat King Zelensky might have to actually capitulate and take off that stupid T-shirt he keeps on wearing all the time.
As someone who opposes T-shirts on principle, I must say. Actually, though, I brought this up. It's like he keeps wearing a T-shirt and not a suit, and it's like, well, he's in a bunker. It's like that doesn't matter. He's the president. I expect the president to dress better. But that's completely beside the point. I apologize.
It's it's a I think the best thing for Zelensky to do, which the West at this point won't allow him to do, because he has applied for NATO membership for Ukraine, is to just stop and negotiate something peaceful with the Russians. Now,
So,
because
do you want to know
Zelensky,
what the official response was from the European Union president?
please.
So, the official statement was stand by, and we're going to evaluate that, which essentially is politician talk for yeah, it's not going to happen.
Okay. So,
Ukraine is a sovereign, independent nation only so far as we get to decide whether or not they can make a peace or not.
Yeah, that is true.
so with the EU essentially not allowing Ukraine to do peace, then it appears that once
Well,
Ukraine,
that there are some developments going
okay,
on with that. The German Bundestag recently had a vote. I forget exactly what day it was, but it was pretty unanimous that they voted not to send any more weapons or funding to the Ukrainian government.
meanwhile, we're literally printing money to send over there.
Yeah, well, that's because we have to prop up a failing empire.
Yeah, well, I mean, the
It,
whole thing with. Oh, I'll let Aiden speak because he hasn't.
America's favorite pastime is to print money. We'll print money for any justifiable excuse we can find.
Well, as the
Or
It's
Onion reported.
non-justifiable.
Well, as the Onion
anything
reported.
vaguely approaching justifiable.
Well, the Onion reported this. There was a debate, in the Great Recession of 2008, whether or not we should just close down the giant money pit. And the panel was overwhelmed. A lot of members of the panel were overwhelmingly negative, to the idea of just chucking money into a giant pit and then setting it on fire periodically. And one woman, her father made this. She made this excellent point. She said, "My father worked a second job to put money into that hole." It is our patriotic duty to waste American taxpayer money on frivolous enterprises, and Boeing and Lockheed Martin and who who makes SIG, I guess now, because they're the ones who make the new U.S. Army service rifle in that
Well,
sand color.
we're still going to be buying M4s until we can procure enough of those. So
Who
whoever
do we buy our M4s from? Colt. They own the patents now.
I forget. I'd have to physically look on my issued rifle next time I get my hands on it, because I don't remember where we get our M4s.
And just so the audience knows, while Colt bought the patents, the AR in AR-15 stands for Armalite, not assault rifle. Just wanted to let you all know that.
And of and of course, we're basically printing all this money to send over to Ukraine when we, as we speak, have a hurricane in South Carolina that is traveling north as we speak.
Yeah, but honestly, who cares? Like nobody in the Pentagon or the State Department or the Treasury cares about the people of the United States as long as they can keep their international financial world order in line.
I was going to make a far more pointed and probably far less dignified comment about what precisely they're doing in the halls of Congress with it may or may not have involved the use of cocaine.
Well,
And of course, on a very serious note, to all of our listeners, especially in Fort Myers, Florida, but in all of Florida, as well as those that are affected by this hurricane, we wish you a very, very speedy recovery of your livelihoods, etc. And we hope that you and yours are safe and well during this time. And we especially thank you for giving us a couple hours of your time this week.
yeah. Hurricanes, not a fun thing. I mean, I live in the Great Lakes. I don't know where the blatant lie that I live in Albuquerque came from, but
The joke.
I know, but of all cities to put me in, Albuquerque. Do I look? Well, not look. Do I sound like a guy from Albuquerque?
I
Like,
don't know. I
Albuquerque
don't
sounds
know
like a
any.
city in a Canadian province more than it does in the middle of a desert. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so, Great Lakes State, our weather can be bad sometimes, like, especially the Great Lakes storm of 1913, look at the aftermath of that, and, well, of course, that just froze everything. I don't think Florida really has the frozen problem, but, yeah, we don't wanna be in either, to be honest. But, on the subject of Ukraine and the US government sending our taxpayer monies, how fair do you guys think the statement is the only reasons the Ukrainians haven't completely faltered yet is just because of the sheer amount of money and material we've thrown at the Ukrainians?
I think that that's the only reason, and also, um, what else? I honestly think that Zelensky and his cabinet, his revolutionary cabinet that came into, like, those types of people came into those positions of power in 2014 by the hands of the State Department. They're kind of having their arm twisted into keeping this war going and to sacrifice every Ukrainian life for essentially the State Department's aims of just essentially keeping Russia over there and as isolated for as possible to eventually make them subject to the American Empire. And the fact that they're resisting is why they're propping up Ukraine. That is a speculation, an educated guess.
Yeah.
To bring the subject back to hurricanes for a little bit, I remember Hurricane Isabel. Isabel was the hurricane that traveled up the Chesapeake Bay. It destroyed people's houses. And remember, we don't get hurricanes very much up here to that degree. And I remember it just being on the news, and you saw places that were absolutely demolished and entire livelihoods were destroyed. And thank goodness that my house was not destroyed. I lived a little bit more inland, but I knew people, at least, whose houses were torn down and had to be rebuilt. And that was a very lengthy process. Um, and it's always a very sad time when a hurricane does that. And I presume that by the time this episode is up on YouTube, this will happen, so I will announce it. The American Red Cross, I presume, will have a donation page up to benefit the victims of Hurricane Ian. You can go to redcross.org and you will, I presume, be able to easily find a huge banner on their website that will take you directly to a link where you can donate to Hurricane Ian relief efforts.
Or, just go to like a local parish or something and put money into there. A lot of parishes have online giving now where you can put money into specific things. But okay. Um so you can give without actually going to that parish.
Yeah,
But
I do donate to a Latin Mass parish on the other side of Montana than myself. That would be like a 7-hour drive. So I don't go there, but they appreciate it.
yeah. And also, if you are a second, like me, make sure the parish lady make sure to put the second and not junior on the little form for tax purposes. Because I don't know, seconds of the world unite and rise up against the junior mob. I don't know. Is this a political call to arms? Is this going to violate YouTube's call to arms policy? I don't.
I don't know. I've literally never seen like terms like junior used. Well, okay, I've seen it once, only with von Moltke the senior and von Moltke the junior, which refer because funny thing, Field Marshal Moltke, the famous one, is actually the senior one, and he had a son that also became a field marshal. in the German Imperial Army. So then they just call him Field Marshal von Moltke the Junior. I don't know if that was official or if that's just a naming convention of history. But that's like the only time I ever see Junior used in other places around the world besides America.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that the second is legally part of my name. Like it's my family name and the second. That's what it says on the.
I mean, there's a lot of people that unfortunately forget naming conventions, and they like say, "Oh, I'm gonna name my kid after my father or my father's father," and then they forget to add like the second. And it's like, yeah, officially you're supposed to put the second if you're going to be naming a direct descendant of another man with the same name. Officially, you're supposed to.
Oh, but obeying to common sense rules is just for those nobles like Charles the Third and such.
I mean, there was also a time back in the day when peasants didn't have last names. It was just you are from someplace. And
Right.
then they invented then last names became more prominent, like with the middle classes and the men in the guilds. Especially in the guilds, they started to take up surnames. And that's why you see like a bunch of like Smiths or Schmidt in German, because that just means Smith. Like you were a Smith and you took up the name of your trade. There's a lot of that goes around in languages when the peasants were made to take surnames.
I wonder how long you could get away with that in certain European countries of not having a surname before they finally just said, "Okay, we're gonna write something
The,
down on a sheet." What's your job?
well, I don't really count the Ottomans as a European country, but they were like tacitly on the European continent. They didn't have surnames until Ataturk in 1924 took over Turkey.
Ataturk, could you stop for like 5 minutes? Like, just stop forcing everything to be westernized.
Yeah,
At least copy the
it's
good Western stuff, like
yeah, it's
Catholicism
like
or something.
I
I
mean,
mean, you say that, but
which
the Ottoman Sultan at one point in time did copy the papal tiara, except he had, 4 crowns instead of 3,
Well, I guess that's kind
because
of
he wanted to flex as having more power and authority than the Pope. But if you think about it, there's still a Pope, but there's no longer an Ottoman Sultan. So who really had the last laugh?
yeah,
and the
but
Pope.
also the Ottoman Sultan claimed to be the successor to Rome, because he conquered Byzantium. Um, but
Except of Greece,
so
maybe.
so I mean, it was kind of like we have this pretender over in Rome. No, I'm the real Roman.
Y-
The
Yeah, I
The
mean,
Turks are
Wait,
kind of
wait.
funny.
That's everything that you need to be a European power, I thought. He claimed to be Roman. They're instituting last names. I mean, that's all. That's like 2 of the big basic requirements to be a European nation, I thought.
I don't know. I don't know. I am still of the theory that the Holy Roman Empire actually still exists because, and the treaty establishing citizenship of the Roman Empire after like a century after like Catholicism was made the state religion, or no, a century after Catholicism was allowed. When it was made the state religion, baptism was contingent on being a Roman citizen, or being a Roman citizen was contingent on you being baptized. So, how do you do, fellow Romans? So technically, we're all subjects of the emperor. It's just the Pope needs to get around and like finding a Habsburg and a
Well, it
crown.
doesn't
And
have
Well,
to be a
there are
Habsburg. It just has
Habsburgs.
to be a crown. It doesn't have to. I mean, it's never had to be a Hab. Well,
Well, yeah,
well, okay, well,
it doesn't
here's what the
have to
treaty
be.
specifically said. It said a few centuries from now, out of Bavaria is going to come up this family that's going to, we're going to call them Habsburgs for the sake of argument, and they're going to be the people who will take over the empire forever and always, except for a certain stint. And then, yeah, that it's very specific
I
in
thought the
the
von
treaty.
Habsburg family came from Switzerland originally.
Oh, I thought they came from Bavaria.
Well, eventually, yes, they came from the Bavaria region, I suppose. But I thought Habsburg itself is in Switzerland.
Quick, we need an Austria vu. Seriously,
Right.
like we
So
have the Bavaria boo right here, but we don't have a we need to get more. We get more Germanic boos or something. But
right.
yeah,
So
so
let's
how is this related to Ukraine?
I
it
mean,
isn't it
Ukraine
is
is a
not.
Hmm.
Here's a solution. The Pope crowns Zelensky the new Holy Roman Emperor. There.
Uh,
no, not the Rat King,
Solved.
not the Rat King.
I
Like Zelensky is a rat. He doesn't deserve a crown.
Okay,
yeah,
well, Putin's an Ortho, so we're not going to
well,
make
yeah,
him
but
a Holy
Zelensky is
Roman
a
Emperor.
Catholic.
Okay, he has more legitimacy than Zelensky, though.
Yeah, I don't even know if
That's not saying well, that's not saying much. Any
well,
of us have more legitimacy than Zelensky.
yeah, no,
There's-
Oh.
I don't think that Zelensky is to be the Holy Roman Emperor.
Before we move on, Kaiser Bob said that the Habsburgs came from the region of Swabia.
Swabia.
Ishvabia. Da, 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 da.
Or Swabia, I mean, technically is how you pronounce it. I actually don't know the spelling in German for the Swabian region. That's also the region where the Hohenzollerns came from, and they would become great rivals later on.
Oh, so it's just an extension of a neighbor dispute. Okay.
Yeah,
Get
I
off my
guess
lawn.
Okay,
it
now
was
you
quite.
have me just imagining that there's the Habsburg Castle and then there's the von Hohenzollern Castle or however.
Well, Hohenzollern Castle is actually a castle. I don't think the Habsburgs did have a castle, but I don't think it was named Habs.
It
Or
was
maybe
I
it might
think it
have.
was
I don't
named
know.
something. I think like the term
Well,
Habsburg is like a corruption of the name of the actual castle.
I also think the Hohenstaufen dynasty also came from the Swabian region. Um, the Hohenstaufen dynasty were essentially like the Habsburgs before the Habsburgs were a thing, and they pretty much like dominated the Holy Roman Empire for like several centuries before the
I always thought
Habsburgs
the
kind of took that.
Capet dynasty was always considered the Habsburgs before the Habsburgs were a thing.
Sounds
Um,
French.
yeah, that they're
Yes,
French.
that's
I'm talking about the Holy Roman Empire, like
oh,
before it was the
specific
Hohenstaufen
to
dynasty.
the HRE then.
Yeah,
I
I'm
see.
I'm only talking about the HRE, which it was really the Hohenstaufen dynasty, which they created the idea of the Ghibelline ideal, or that the emperor had total complete temporal leadership over all of Christendom, separate from the papacy, which the papacy had total supreme spiritual authority over all of Christendom. Both powers were equal in the sense, but one was temporal and one was spiritual. I made a very long video on Ghibellinism on my channel. Go check it out. It's gonna be kind of boring because I don't have like any like clips or anything. I just have like pictures go by as I read about Ghibellinism.
I
It
actually
was a
have
very
a relevant document in my Denzinger saved. Hold on. I have a lot of bookmarks. Well, actually, I have a lot of paint chips used as bookmarks because, well, when your house gets shot up, you need paint chips to do things.
Also, I
Well,
recommend for all of you read Dante Alighieri's De Monarchia if you
We're
really want
getting to
to
the
know.
book section at the end of the
No, I'm
podcast.
just saying, like, if you want, it's tying into Ghibellinism. If you want to know about, like, divine right of kings and, like, what actually, like, why, if you need to justify it, Dante has essentially the best takes that you can get for Christian monarchy.
and I will say,
right.
I will just read this very briefly because it's only two paragraphs, and I guess it kind of relates to the HRE discussion. And I guess to tie it into the whole Ukraine thing, or I don't know how this ties in, but we'll see. Letter Latin name Suquit Universalis to the Consul Archibus of Florence, 30 October 1198. Well, October 30th, but I don't use the dumb dating system. Anyways, twofold supreme power on earth. As God, the founder of the universe, constituted two great lights in the firmament of heaven, a greater light to preside over the day, day, and the lesser light to preside over the night. So, in the firmament of the universal church, which is called by the name of heaven, he instituted two great dignities, the greater as if to preside over the day of souls, and the lesser to preside over the night of bodies, which are the pontifical authority and the royal power. Furthermore, as the moon draws its light from the sun, and is in fact the lesser than it in both gentleness and greatness and quality, in position as in effect, so royal power draws the splendor of its dignity from the pontifical authority. The more it remains in its sight, the greater the light with which it is endowed, and the more removed from its vision, the more it declines in splendor. So, take that, separation of church and statist.
Yeah, separation of church and state is a myth, and it liberals trying to uphold it should be
Not
squashed.
by the Sasquatch, because we're in because we're entering spooky season. Even though Bigfoot really
Yes,
isn't
we
spooky season.
are.
But that's
Yes,
another.
we.
But that's for when we. But that's for our first episode recorded in October, I think, because this is
Spooky,
technically
scary
September.
skeletons.
We have no guarantee that our chaplain will be joining us in October. So, Aiden, if you wouldn't mind quickly going over Hallowtide.
Oh, okay.
Palatine.
Oh,
That comes towards the end of October. It's not really towards the beginning.
well, yeah, but we have no guarantees you'll be here because you don't.
I will be here.
Mm.
Okay.
All right. Very
Also,
well then.
also speaking of religious matters and chaplainism, the other day was also Michaelmas, or
Yes.
the feast day of Saint Michael. So make your devotions to the archangel that casted Satan into hell.
And of course, in the new calendar, it is the feast of all three of the archangels, because apparently Saint Gabriel and Saint Raphael don't deserve their own feast days. They had to get
Raphael.
subsumed in. Yes, Raphael, thank you. Saint Gabriel and Saint Raphael don't deserve their own feast days, apparently, so they had to get
I mean,
clumped in with Saint
the
Michael.
first pronunciation was technically correct, Raphael. Like it can be pronounced either way.
Well,
Well,
no,
yeah.
but there's a fourth angel that people debate. I don't even know.
There's
Something about
there's
the
technically
Let's
Ethiopian
not
seven.
even
Orthodox
let's not
having.
even let's not even bring that up and
I
just talk
I mean, there's
about
technically seven, but
well,
we don't know
yes,
the
there.
names. The other four, like they're named in the Book of Enoch, but since it's not explicitly, it's not canon, so we only officially know the names of three.
Yeah, let's not stray into that territory because we
Yes.
are definitely
So,
not
and
theologians. So,
anyway, Saint Raphael or Raphael and Saint Gabriel were deprived of their feast days in the missal promulgated in 1970 by Pope Paul VI, who I
I
believe
wouldn't
is now Saint
say
Paul VI.
deprived of their feast days. They merely had their feast days consolidated. We still celebrate them,
Well,
do we
yes.
not?
the only
Yes, we technically do celebrate them, but their feasts were kind of comboed into St. Michael's feast day.
I don't think that I would necessarily characterize that as a mere technicality. That's a pretty central point. They're all still celebrated in the church, and they're just merely celebrated on the same day.
Yeah, I mean,
Fair
I
point.
think that
Fair
they
point.
deserve their own feast day. I don't know. The only like new calendar like feast day moving that I actually kind of agree with is moving the feast of Saint Joseph the Worker to or May Day, or wait, what? It's one of the traditional like leftist work days, and so we move it to
Saint
emphasize
Joseph
the
a
Catholic
Worker
nature.
is on. Did you say Saint Joseph a Worker was put into May 1st between 1955 and 1962.
Yeah, so I approve of that notion to show people that labor is dignified, and we don't need uh
N-
need no
Not
socialist.
not in the Calvinist way, guys, where it's literally
More
everything and
work, more profit.
yeah.
No,
So
so
anyway,
Before the Vice
anyway,
Chancellor comes in and starts yelling at us for prop bashing again.
well, the vice
Now
chancellor
we're
is
gonna prod
actually
bash
the
if we
vice
want.
chancellor is not actually coming today.
I know,
We
but
get
you
free
might
reign.
summon him if you do enough of this. It might just summon him. So I would
Well,
Right,
prefer
okay,
to
so
avoid that.
we'll do it
let us
sparingly. We'll let the world tension meter reduce slightly over time.
Was there anything else anyone wanted to say on the Ukraine situation?
Oh yeah, Zelensky trying to join
no.
NATO. Could you maybe not try to drag us into a war we have no business in? Like what could Zelensky possibly like? What would Ukraine joining NATO possibly do other than getting us into the war direct? We're already giving them all the money and weapons they want. We're
Here's the
giving them.
thing. So, first of all, in order to get someone to join NATO, you would have to somehow placate Turkey again after the stink they rose over, what was it, Sweden and Finland joining?
Yes.
Yes, which I very highly doubt is going to happen. Secondly, NATO hasn't historically admitted any country that was in the middle of an active war. So I don't think Article 5 would necessarily apply to the currently ongoing conflict, as it's,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
that's up for
ongoing.
interpretation as well.
So I don't think that this was anything other than a PR stunt.
But what could he possibly gain by it?
Gained by a PR stunt, morale for his troops.
I mean, if entry into NATO is declined, that probably is going to reduce Ukrainian morale.
I don't think they're going to decline so much as soft pedal.
So we'll let you. I mean, we'll let you in as soon as you like get this whole border dispute coming
Yeah.
on.
I mean, if you have to give credit to the Western world, the modern Western world, for one thing, it would have to be the ability to layer so much bureaucracy that nothing can ever get done.
So
uh,
you mean the civilization phase of a s- of a historical cycle? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
great. By the way, guys, read some Oswald Spengler. That's where you'll get that terminology that I just said.
Right,
what
so do we
recommendation?
want to? All right, so
Yeah, do we want to? Do we want to move? Are we all good?
yeah, let's go.
Well,
Welcome to the Hotel California.
where
No, not
everything.
time for singing. That's
No.
To get copyright struck.
yeah.
Well, okay,
Well,
hey.
that's not my
This is why
reasoning,
you
but
let Charles here do all the singing because I sing a lot of public domain songs. Robert Burns can't sue me over singing Old Lang Syne because well, firstly he's dead and also it's in the public domain. So, yeah. Disney didn't come along soon enough to keep doing
Okay,
that.
all right.
Anyways,
Let's.
so, but Old Lang Syne is for our next New Year's episode, and hopefully I'll know more of the words than last time. Don't go back to our previous New Year's episode and if you want to hear that. But anyways,
I
uh,
don't.
yeah. So we're living it up in the Hotel California, where everything's insanity. But
And
I
hot.
and on
It's very
fire,
hot in California. But
and
then,
they want
to
to
me,
steal Great
everything is
Lakes
hot.
water. I'm
Wait, they
sorry, I
do?
had to mention this by default.
Wait. I don't know. What's the story there? I don't know that. I don't get that. What's going on?
Okay. Well, so the Callies, or just the western states in general, because everyone thought it was a good idea to live in a massive desert. They want to take water from the Great Lakes and just pump it out there, and yeah, you see, this is why all the Great Lakes states need to band together to form.
Charles? Seriously?
No, I am being serious. We almost band together as one and form one massive Great Lakes Confederation, even annexing the Canadian provinces that border the Great Lakes if necessary to secure our interests. And only once the Californians finally invent a reasonable cost desalinization plant will consider our water secure for future generations of Michiganians and Ohioans and Illinoisers,
They've
Illinoisans, whatever's,
Let's get to the
Wisconsinites.
actual bill that we're here to discuss, Charles.
Oh, and I guess California's also doing some stupid immoral things that actually Putin ranted about in his speech today. So,
Like they always are.
yeah.
Is it a day ending in Y? I mean,
I mean,
I mean, that was like genuinely like a pretty hot, like, imagine like the biggest like hot takes that somebody can take and wrap it up to 11. Yeah, thank you, Putin.
yeah, no, it's just so Putin. So actually, Putin in his speech today talked about how the evilness of the West, and even called the modern West satanic, which
Which is based.
I mean,
It depends on what part of
he's
the
not
modern.
wrong. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's not wrong, but he
I think in every way he's not wrong, but
yeah. I mean, but on the same day he talked about like like I guess I don't know, like all this stuff. California signed a law that said expanded the right of the state of California, at least from my understanding, because I admit that I've only been informed about the secondhand, to take away children from parents if the parents do not want to give the child a sex change if the child wants one, which is just that's that's not good. That's there are words to describe the magic of the sunrise. There are not words to describe the stupidity of this of this law. Gav, please stop. Please. Like all I know is that people are like, if we don't stop global warming, then California is going to sink or something. Gav, you're making me not want to solve global warming. You're making me want to build a steam locomotive and start shoveling coal in
no,
there
no,
and keeping the fire going night and day. Just
no, you'd have to start burning tires endlessly.
oh, the great tire fire of 2013. Oh, I remember that so well. I mean,
Yeah,
no, I'm joking.
But
Hey,
keep on.
yeah, keep on. I'll
so a
let Aiden talk about it because he's a medical dude.
a big part of the bill that was released is prohibiting healthcare providers from releasing medical information about children receiving gender health services, so-called gender health services, in response to the actions, both criminal and civil, from a state where such care is restricted. So if someone were to leave, say, Texas, and get so-called gender affirmation surgery procedure performed, and then were to go back without their parents' consent, the hospitals would not be mandated by law to turn over that kind of information. It's basically an expansion of HIPAA in that sense.
That's. I mean, here's what really.
That section of the law is non-controversial to me, at least.
Well,
I mean, it's treating children like they're fully autonomous adults who have like full capacity to make their own decisions.
Sure, but if the parents want access to their medical information, I mean, parents have access to medical information. They can get a copy of medical records. The state, generally speaking, doesn't have an interest and shouldn't have an interest in accessing people's private medical records.
Oh, it's
Everything about medical ethics is against that.
Sorry, hold on. So it's preventing other states from getting it, not parents?
Correct. It's preventing other states from basically not subpoenaing hospitals, but that wouldn't be the right word for it. I work in medicine, not in medical law, but it would prevent other states from compelling hospitals to turn over this information.
I mean that. I mean, is that standard practice for any medical, like for if you come in with for a uh like a broken bone, is that standard practice for any state, or like that like
So the closest comparison I can think of is if someone was in a car accident and it was suspected that they were a drunk driver and they came into the hospital and we did some blood tests on them so we could treat them. The cops can't access that information unless they come with a warrant for it, which they can get, and then we can turn it over to them. But I remember there was a very famous case actually where a nurse was arrested for refusing to give this information over when a warrant wasn't presented. A couple of years ago, it was a charge nurse arrested right off of her floor. Media made a stink. She got awarded. Police officers were, of course, fired.
Yeah,
because medical ethics, privacy is the most important thing in medical ethics.
Okay, but for this new California thing, if the state got a warrant, would they be able to get those records?
No, that's what this is prohibiting.
Okay, so
If a state wanted to try to prosecute a California hospital for performing a surgery that is illegal on one of that state's citizens, they would not be able to access it. Again, it's fairly non-controversial because, first of all, I don't necessarily think such a law would be able to apply in the first place anyways, and secondly, and secondly, medical ethics.
Okay, so but that
That's
I don't know
one
about.
part of this bill.
That's only a part of it. Let's see.
The bill also bans police from arresting or extraditing someone based on another state's restrictions for providing gender health services to a child. So if you have a warrant out for your arrest for doing a trans surgery in Texas, California won't turn you over. And then there's also a law prohibiting California officials from enforcing another state's order that a child be removed from parents because they were getting that surgery.
Well, hold on. But doesn't the Constitution require states to extradite any criminal for laws broken?
Officially, yes, but the power can do whatever they want, so.
They can file all the protests they want, unless the feds make them do it, they're not going to do it.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean by the power. Like, the power doesn't care for what a piece of paper says.
It's just...
I mean, see the Fugitive Slave Act.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, no, I mean, the whole thing is just, I mean, this whole thing is an abrupt... I don't know. I mean, this law is ridiculous. So parents, the state of California can take away children. The state of California thinks it has the right to take away children from parents who don't want to mutilate their children, but it will not enforce it will not help other states enforce the right to take away children from parents who do want to mutilate their children.
Basically, if a couple were to fight over whether or not their kid should be able to get this gender affirmation surgery, one of those parents could run away to California, and the California government would do nothing to try to prevent that parent from engaging in whatever surgeries they were trying to get.
Oh, this reminded me of this case where there was this woman who for whatever reason
Talking about
thought
the
her...
Texas case where
Yes,
the parents divorced and the mom wanted to get the
the son
surgery on
or
the
their son,
son, and the father didn't want to do that, but the mother insisted.
and the court was like, "Yeah, bleep you," to the father. Yeah, that's just that whole thing. I cannot imagine what it is like for that like son, like who always like apparently, because apparently the story is actually a couple years old. Like the ruling is recent, but this whole thing kickstarted a few years ago. If I'm remembering the same case, and it's like the boy, he always acts like a boy outside of his mother's company, and when he's with his father, he like, or I think he dresses in normal boy's clothes, and he always acts like a boy. He has like a boy's interest. Um, I cannot imagine what it is like to actually be normal and then have your mother just shove this on you. Like that is just well, diabolical. It's despicable. It is, and the fact that a Texas judge is like, "Oh, the mother can do this." I'm sorry. Um, that I don't know. I don't know how the judge in any sort of good conscience could say, "Yeah, this is it." I mean, I don't.
Yeah, but also what matters, you're forgetting is what actually matters is power at the end of the day. Who holds the power? Who determines these things? Who determines the morality? And the people in power want these children to be mutilated. They want them to be sterilized. They want to bring about their Bugman future. Like that's what the elites want.
I know it's what they want. It's just that it's just I mean, the fact remains, and this is the thing. Okay, YouTube, I am not calling for an armed insurrection against the state. Okay, firstly because it would have no chance of succeeding, and then so it wouldn't be a just uprising. But the the thing is that if this is why they had to do this slowly. Okay, because if you went back to 1950 America, which wasn't great by any means. I'm not saying that 1950 America was the shining thing that the boomers all seem to think it was. But okay, so you go back to 1950 America, where most people morally were on the same page, and everybody on a moral level was
I wouldn't say most people because there was a lot of people that had to use different water fountains, different
okay. Well,
bathrooms,
I'm
different
talking about. I'm
schools.
talking. Okay, okay. Let's just say that this in the purely sexual realm. Okay, so everyone's mostly on the same page. Okay, and then if for whatever, and if people just decided to Koshin, we can hear like background noise. Okay, so if people just decided to push all of this at once, there would have been a flippin' revolution. Like there would have been riots. There would have been like there probably would have been a few people hanged by angry mobs over that. But no, they pushed this garbage slowly, and because it's been pushed slowly, no one is seriously going to do it because they're not massively stepping over the line. It's I mean, you know that Scooby Doo episode where they're in Chinatown, but somehow they're like this ancient Chinese temple. I don't know. It was weird. Scooby Doo was weird. Everyone was. I don't know. Anyways, but you have the ghost. Spoiler alert! It wasn't a ghost. Oh wow, it's a Scooby Doo. It's a Scooby Doo thing, and you're telling me the ghost wasn't real and it was just a guy in a mask. Wow.
Anywho,
Anyways, so you have the the ghost. It's like and Shaggy's like, you crossed the line, and I warn you, I know chop suey and Chinese checkers, and the ghost crosses the line, and Shaggy's like, oh, how about this line? Duh. And then eventually it goes on, and then the ghost just kind of just walks up to him, takes the stick, snaps it, and Shaggy says, I don't think he wants to play anymore, and does the do 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 do
Well,
and gets out of there. That is
yeah,
American
you're pretty much,
conservatives.
yeah. American conservative. Conservative in a Western liberal
Yeah,
democracy
that's
just
I was
means,
doing the air quotes. But
well, yeah, it just means like the supporters of the status quo. We're going to complain and we're going to isolate and we're going to contain like that. A the center right party in any liberal democracy is a containment mechanism for the actual right wing elements in a country. It's meant to keep them isolated and surrounded by politicians that won't actually do what their constituency wants, and to like siphon away that right wing energy from forming an actually like truly socially conservative and right wing party of any type. And they hate it whenever other parties try to start up, and they typically try to quash it as soon as possible, where they bring up scandals and stuff. Scandals that may be legitimate or not, but they use them as tools to blunt them over the head from actual like right wing action. And they promote as their foot soldiers left wing dissidents because quite frankly, left wing dissidents are just tools for the regime. Like the regime does not suffer anything by Antifa rioting in the streets, because they know ultimately at the end of the day they can just tell those same people will line up and get your COVID jab whenever they want.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the I mean really I guess to draw this back to this whole issue, you have to consider, okay, so I work, I work around kids. I fix things for when that the kids inevitably break because it turns out 3-year-olds are very destructive people. But I see all these little kids, and most of them, they look, they have that innocence, and they're dressed in normal clothes, and they really don't have a care in the world. They're like probably most of us when we were young. If we were fortunate enough to have that kind of childhood. But then I see some, and it's not a lot, but I see some where the parents put them in like mohawks, or give them earrings. I think I've seen on a couple, and it's and I seen a really grotesque thing at Sam's Club that I'm not even going to relate of like 4-year-olds who really shouldn't know what that is. But it's all of this, and it's the fact that you had to remember that these people are out here to destroy the innocence of children, and to go even further than that, and try to physically destroy them. Um and this is not something that in any way, shape, or form is permissible. In no way should we collaborate with these people. Okay. This isn't okay. You have the lesser of two. A lot of people. We always like to talk about the lesser two evils when it comes to the ballot. I'm sorry. If you have candidate, let's say you have candidate A, who in almost every respect seems to be the perfect candidate with his policies or whatever. But if he advocates for abortion, for the mutilation of children, for the destruction of the
Or
innocence
or
of children,
or even this is the worst part about it is if he's indifferent about it. That's somebody who is truly evil, somebody who's indifferent to
yeah,
evil.
if there is somebody like that, I don't care what the other guy's platform is. If his platform is anti-abortion, pro-life, but anti-abortion, anti these mutilations of children, and these perverse, and trying to pervert children's minds. If he's anti that, you gotta vote for him, because these social ills are some of the biggest
But
evils of our
also
time, because the
keep in
children are
mind, audience, as well, voting is not the only, like, the problem with, like, many right-wingers is they just vote and they think that that's all they need to do. It's like, no, you need to demonstrate, you need to organize, you need to become lawyers and bring up scandals against abortion doctors. Like, you need to do the same tactics that the left does to take us down. You need to take them down through the same methods. Bring up scandals, bring up lawsuits, do all these things, organize, make actual efforts to take down these evil institutions. That's the problem with the right wing in most liberal democracies, is they just refuse to, and they just think, oh, voting will answer all the problems. No, it never does.
Oh, and that's
Back
because
to when to go back to what Charles was referring to there. Charles was referring to the so-called four non-negotiables as promulgated by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. That is exactly what he was referring to there.
oh, well, I guess not directly. I just knew that you weren't allowed to vote for people who were pro-abort. But um, what are the other four? What are the other three
That's
non-negotiables?
not germane. That's not germane to the discussion right now. I can tell you off.
Oh, well, I guess I can just look it up. But no, I mean it's the no, I mean, and the thing is, I've heard it described this way. Okay, American conservatives in this country were dedicated to the rules of the game more than actually winning the game. So so we always look, we're like we're shocked when the Democrats or any left leaning individuals in this country, uh, break the rules and social customs. But it's like they don't care. They're more interested in gaining power. Thank you very much. I mean, it's. I mean, these whole stupid. I mean, they'll talk about our sacred democracy or whatnot, but it's like they don't care. They just want to gain power. I mean, you gotta admire them for being ruthlessly efficient.
The Republicans talk about the sacred Constitution. The
Well,
Democrats talk about the sacred democracy.
there's a difference.
Our entire
In
nation is
Republican,
built on fundamentally two opposing forces of idolatry working together.
yeah, well, I mean, but here's the fundamental difference between the Republicans and the Democrats in this regard. The Republicans actually pretend to care about the Constitution, whereas the Democrats will quite happily scream by any means necessary if they don't think we're listening.
Well,
I mean, and
okay,
what we
so
are.
if I can interject for a second,
I like interjections.
part of the issue, right, is you said they care more about rules than winning. To some extent, preserving the rules is a condition that is a necessary condition of winning. You don't you can't protect the city by burning it down. It's because like that denies the enemy the city, but you still lost the city. You haven't won.
Well, no, but I mean, what I'm saying is that if playing by the rules will help them win, I mean, it's like if doing what you're supposed to helps you in your final goal, then they'll do that. I'm not saying that Democrats will just always break the rules. If
No,
obeying the rules will help them,
I'm
then
saying the
they'll do it.
Republican, to an extent, right, cares about preserving the rules because that's essentially a part of the win condition. Losing the rules is losing the rules is losing the game.
Well, I mean, are the rules really worth preserving in the first place? Is the question you had to ask yourself. I mean, if the rules are producing these kinds of choices, are the rules
Well,
themselves really worth preserving? Which is probably why all of us are here, because because to a certain degree we all answer the question in the negative, at least in some sense.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
at that point,
if,
depends on
if the
exactly.
if the rules are evil or if the laws are evil, it's not, you don't follow those laws and rules. Just saying. I'm not saying, I'm not making a call to arms, YouTube. That's just a moral statement.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's just when I mean, look at what we have now with all of this trash that is being pushed on our children. And they're not, I mean, going after us as individual, like going after like just the fully grown adults and trying to shut us up or whatever. Okay, that's one thing. And and that's bad obviously. But that's one thing, because we're capable of fighting back to a greater degree. But when you're going after children, okay, children who really can't comprehend, when you're going after children who still think a zillion is a valid number or something, like that'll be $1 zillion, please, or whatever. Where you're going after that age group, that is just it is the most disgusting, and even younger than that, especially with abortion, because you're just dropping all pretense and killing them. That is where a line actually has to be drawn, and we really do need to start asking ourselves the questions as to how far are we willing to collaborate, because we've always in this country we've always had to be a willing participant, an unwilling participant in evil to a certain extent by funding, because the U.S. I don't think there's ever been a U.S. Uh, federal budget that didn't have taxes for something immoral. But but depending on it, that didn't justify tax evasion, because justifying tax evasion would be a pretty dang high bar to set, because yeah, you're not funding the ending the the bad thing, but now, oh no, the roads aren't paved, and the federal army is now non-existent and the country's being invaded. But we really need to start asking ourselves, when is enough enough? And I feel as if we were in the 1950s and this stuff got proposed now, then we would have said that enough was enough, and we would have done something more. But because this was pushed on us slowly, I mean, the average person would say, "What? You're just getting upset now?" You know, and that's a fair point, because as a whole, conservatives in this country should have been getting upset a very long time ago. I mean, we got upset, but we never did anything. We never, I'm not saying riots are good, but we never had Occupy Wall Street for conservatives, where we try to shut down when next. I mean, I will bet you $20 that next June there won't be a massive group of conservatives going to Wall Street to protest all the companies changing their profile pictures to some version of the gay pride flag. I will bet you a comfortable $20, which is about all I can afford to give you, and it's going to be on change. But change will probably be worth more than the US dollar if the society collapses, because it's metal. But but yeah, I can bet you a comfortable 20 that no one's gonna occupy Wall Street over that, because but business principles first and foremost, but also because we don't have a spine, and I'm just as guilty of that as anyone. I'll let someone else talk now.
So,
All right.
I mean, Occupy Wall Street was pretty based because it was anti-consumeristic capitalism. So,
All
yeah,
right.
I'll just make that statement.
All right.
But but with the perversion of children, I mean, with them, there are no barriers. There is no morality. You can't be an atheist and have morals. I'm just making that flat out straight for all those atheists that claim to have morality. You don't, because anything can be justified if you don't have a god, and that's why all these state atheist regimes could justify things like genocide. Because at the end of the day, the state is God if you don't believe in anything higher. And if the state says, "Oh, it's fine to mutilate your children," well, the state is God, and the state determines morality. So, yeah, that's the logical consequences of your thought process if you're one of these people that are like a solely adhere to the rule of law and don't question it. Don't question what the state does. Don't believe in any higher virtue. That is where that ultimate. That's why they want to mutilate children. That's why they want to pervert them, and why literally. What is that term, like? Map or something for like pedophiles that they want to defend now.
The sex offender registry. I don't
No,
know.
no, I'm talking about like
Maps.
they literally they want to make they want to make pedophilia part of their like LGBT like banner essentially.
Now isn't that like Nambla or something?
I don't
No, I
know.
think it's something short of like that, like map or something.
Map. It's
Yeah.
map.
Oh, minor attracted person,
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
because
that's just the group of people we needed to be, sanctifying with a politically correct term.
I mean,
Okay.
this is the thing. Oh, I'll let Coach speak.
Well, right. So um I don't think it's exactly just uh, the just a thing of putting the state above everything else, because if you'll notice, a lot of these people will get and not looking any higher value. And you'll notice a lot of these people do start screaming the moment the government does something they don't like. It's about the abolition of standards, the abolition of
What you're
differences
referring to is
between
what
things.
you're referring to is ethics. Ethics are different than
Well,
morality.
that
Ethics
is
are
a
procedures.
consequence. Yes, the abolition of ethics is a consequence of that. But I mean, it's the abolition of the concept of like a difference between a child and an adult leads into things like the abolition of the concept of the sanctity of the child's innocence. It's a little more of a circuitous route, but it has a lot of
No, I mean
serious
I mean, like,
implication.
ethics only matter what the law says matters, and ethics can change with the law.
No, no. Look, I'm talking about the people we're talking about. Right? It's not that they think it only matters what the law says because they break the law. They scream about the government when it does certain things. What it is that they want to abolish standards, and that includes things like the sanctity of children, the idea that children are innocent and must be protected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but where do you get that higher morality of that children need to be defended? I'm saying this as
well, no,
a rhetorical
that's
question.
no, I
Because,
would
like,
say
Oh yeah,
you
no,
need
that
to.
I'm
that
not
no,
forgetting.
hold on. I think I can find a middle ground for once. Wow. I think
Yeah. Oh, find
that
a middle ground. Yeah.
no, between these two things. I think that in a lot of areas, because we all have a certain extent the natural law impressed upon our heart. So I think that even this is why most atheists, obviously not some like Stalin who were perfectly fine with killing people if it meant they could be more comfortable, but you know but most atheists will still say you can't kill people in the abstract, and they'll come up with some reason for that. But I think that a lot of areas where atheists seem to line up with morality, even if they're not actually being moral. It's just that their own personal ethical code lines up with objective or truth. Is because of the natural law that is impressed upon their heart, and they come up with a rationale based off of that. So that's when it's in a certain way it's them putting what they personally think over that of the state if they do disagree with the state. But in this one instance, it's also them accidentally agreeing with the divine because they're supporting the natural law that is impressed upon their hearts. So I
Or,
think that's kind of what
or
Koshin is saying.
I guess I wasn't really trying to get into that element. I was just saying it's yeah, sure. I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I don't really think that's what I was trying to get at. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
disagree with I don't disagree
Yeah.
with anything.
Okay. So yeah, I saw, so I guess, because there are certain people who will just put the state as the supreme thing, which, if you remove God from the equation, you have to put something to fill the void of supreme X. Um, and for some people that may be the state. For some people that may be your own personal moral code. Um, and for some, and for some people, it might be Marvel movie. No,
Well, for some
um,
people, it literally is Marvel movies.
well, one,
Well, to be fair, stories are like for to illustrate elements of sort of
yeah.
inherent
I'm not
truth
saying.
and stuff like that.
What did you say? You kind of were soft there. What did you say?
Oh, it just stories are sort of attempts to illustrate elements of truth that we can't articulate because we haven't figured out how to.
Oh yeah. I get. Well, any good media is going to, beyond pure entertainment. Any good media. Oh, Aiden
Well,
has.
to an extent, it's not entertaining if it's not doing.
Well, yeah, no. No, I know. I think that even beyond all good media is entertaining. Like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, they're entertaining. I need to reread the Lord of the Rings because it's been years, but I recently reread
Oof.
the Hobbit. But they're entertaining. But beyond that, the books and by extension the authors conveyed lessons through them. So I
I would
think
argue,
that for media to be
I would argue
truly
to,
good.
I would argue to an extent that is part of why they're in.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. Although although it is possible to have um media that's supposed to portray, like, you see this with a lot of like Bible shows that are aimed towards kids, where they're just terrible to watch, even if
Or you
they get the
cringe, you
lesson right.
physically cringe, you want to throw up when you
I
see
mean,
it.
I think stuff that's intended for kids is,
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know, I guess it's under a different category.
Well,
Just
yeah,
because kids are different.
no, I
yeah,
mean, I don't.
but even as a kid, like a lot of kids cringed when they saw that type of media. Like
Yeah,
it's missing the point of like what makes good media most of the time.
Well,
yeah. I mean, no, I
I
think
mean, essentially when you're making stuff like that, you're to an extent intentionally setting out to create propaganda, which, I mean, it's propaganda even if what you're pushing is correct. You know, I'm just talking like in technical terms. And when you're
yeah.
doing that, you're less likely to make something enjoyable because you're putting
Well,
like a sort of more simple, concrete thing in front of the, you know what I mean?
well, yeah, I know what you mean, but I will use a couple of examples. So, VeggieTales, and I'm not entirely in line with the whole timeline of VeggieTales. Apparently, Netflix now owns the rights to it, which is just cry internally, guys, cry internally. But 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 no. So, but the
The
VeggieTales.
Eye of Sauron controls VeggieTales.
So this is truly what society would be on the point of no return. No, but
Um,
the what were you gonna say, Vic?
Really
Before
too
I
off topic.
continue.
yeah, I was trying to get us back on.
Oh well,
I was trying to
I'll
get
just
us
make my
back.
point quickly. I'll just make my point quickly. Okay, so VeggieTales, I would argue, it is entertaining whilst whilst getting the lesson across to children. Like I can't remember the name of it offhand, but there was one because VeggieTales would do ones where they would do the Bible stories sometimes, like the one with Esther, but obviously they had to kid it down because the island of perpetual tickling replaced people getting executed
I
because
have a
I don't know,
problem.
the island of perpetual tickling. No, but which kind of sounds like a fate worse than death. But anyways, no, but like there was one story that wasn't biblical, but it was these essentially people who worked in a sea fast food thing. Uh let's see. Oh, hold on. Oh, Aiden's gonna be taking his leave. So, sorry. I don't know. I didn't read properly. Anyways, but anyways, the point is that it is an entertaining story. I can't remember what it was, but they did do the Rock Lobster song. So if you're remembering, if anything's going off in your like memory bell as like a kid, that's probably what it is. But it got good lessons across, mainly perseverance. That you always see a job through to its completion, especially if other people's lives are on the line. And I think the father, like who shows up briefly at the end, is also a king, so that's kind of cool. But you always follow a task through to the end, even when you have an alleged easy out. Um, and it was an entertaining story. The pirates who don't do anything. Yes, it was the pirates who don't do anything. Oh dang, the song's coming back to me now, but I'm not gonna sing it because copyright.
Right.
No, but
So,
Yeah, let's.
yeah. So, anyways, in short, children's media can actually be entertaining and convey a moral lesson. It's just probably a harder balance to pull, uh, because it's not like it's by kids for kids. Okay,
And,
so now
and
we can get
also,
back to what
well, we could just go back to like hardcore
fairy tales.
folk tales that like put the fear of God into kids, but we
yeah.
could.
So, let's I think now's a good time to move on to our next scheduled topic. Charles?
I guess if nobody else has any objections, no. Okay. Just wanted to make sure we do like our conformity here. Okay. Um. So, uh, China allegedly, and I'm not the most qualified person to talk about this because all I know is the title, and we all know how reliable titles are from articles. Savior Tehran. China pops up Tehran with major oil purchase. So, yeah, apparently there's some oil embargo that China is violating or something, and apparently this is going to help prop up the uh, Iranian government. And honestly, are we surprised that China doesn't give a dang about U.S. embargoes? I mean, I mean, why? I mean, if they think they can get away with it, which given how preoccupied we are with a certain area of Europe, they might as well. I mean, what are we going to do? Start blockade the blockade the Strait of Malacca? I mean, what are we? I mean, that would be an act of war. I mean, what can we realistically do to stop the Chinese from breaking an embargo that they don't want to be a part of? Uh, Anybody? Like, I mean, without causing a war.
I will defer to Darth on this one because he is the one of our number that is in the military, so I will defer to him.
So, I mean, you're talking about like Iran and China. Well, I mean, this has been part of their Belt and Road initiative that they've been pursuing for years now, which is a attempt to make themselves less dependent upon sea lane access to conduct trade and to get Middle Eastern energy from. Because if you're China like that, and you know the United States can just blockade you, and suddenly that's 90% of your imports and exports gone. And all your energy comes by sea, mostly through the Straits of Malacca, which is the one which is between the UAE and Iran, which can easily also be blockaded by a very small U.S. task force. Well, you're going to want to make ways of purchasing energy with the possibility of the United States destroying that trade. So they've been developing pipelines, railroads, roads, every piece of infrastructure that can trade on across the between uh, all Africa. They didn't vote to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Same with India, because they're all strategic, economic, and military partners, and you can't just do a geopolitical stance like that and expect to remain allies with another major power. But like people say, oh, they're saving. I mean, what you're seeing in Iran right now is like a bunch of protests and possible uprisings. I don't know how the validity, how serious. I but even China would probably deal with the Shah unless the Shah went out with like an explicitly American foreign policy, which is always a possibility, but you don't really know. We also don't know if the Shah will be restored. That's just a speculation if the riots are successful and they overthrow the Ayatollah. But
I think that's just his wish.
What did you say,
you're
Coachman?
breaking up there.
I think that's just monarchist wishful thinking. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, well, all the major protests are done by monarchists in Iran, so and if they're actually able to seize power, it's like I'm just being kind of realistic on the situation in the ground. I mean, also the Ayatollah has floated around like a compromise government in the past, but that's been more speculation and not really any serious efforts have gone towards that. So, yeah, just take that with a pinch of salt. Also, we don't know what the hell is going on in Iran. Like we can speculate what's going on over there, but like we only get like what Telegram posts at most of what's happening over there, and that's pretty much the extent of our
Telegram.
information. What?
We can't even afford a singing telegram. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, how can we consider ourselves well informed if the telegram man isn't a
Telegram, the Slack communications app, which is, I mean, it's more reliable than Twitter, but that's not saying much.
Oh, we're not talking about the guy who shows up to your house with a typed message. Oh,
Yeah, no, we're talking about like
no.
we're talking about the app. I mean, which is
Okay.
like if you want like information coming out of like Ukraine and Russia, like you're only gonna get biased sources, but like it's better than nothing essentially. Because the Western media will always tell you lies.
Well,
Right.
they're honest about how much they want your money with all those sign up for subscription things.
Well,
Yes, and they
Honesty is the
are,
best
which
policy
is
for getting money.
which is why you should protect your internet. No, I'm just kidding. uh,
Today's
we are
sponsor
not
this is
sponsored.
sponsored
is
by
Monarch VPN,
NordVPN.
About to have a stroke.
the king of all VPNs. You can break your country's laws and get access to videos that aren't allowed in or to Netflix content that's not available in your country, which violates the terms of service. You can
You
be
can
an
also access
immorally
RT
illicit person.
News for once.
Is there YouTube is RT's news like YouTube channel still up? Hold
Yeah,
on.
no,
I have Chrome
they've
open.
been taken down at the beginning of the invasion. Like,
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, that's I don't know. I watched like one RT news video years ago. I can't remember what it was about.
I mean, I trust them more than Western media, but that's me.
Well, that's dumb.
I still trust them more than CNN, CS, any day of the week. I don't care if
I
somebody's
really wouldn't.
dumb or
I wouldn't trust either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, really though, I do need one of these days to for Darth to enlighten me as to how to get to these like Indian and news sources that he keeps harping on about that are more reliable than just the Russians telling whatever the Russians government wants you to know
Right.
and our government telling us
Um.
what we want to know. But that's
So
enough.
you
so
just
let's.
you switch your VPN to like a Middle Eastern or a country around India, and suddenly your search results are more around those areas.
Oh well, I don't use a VPN.
Just like in French class, I learned that if you type in google.fr, you will get French results. No VPN needed.
Well, I don't think the French are going to be much of a help in your struggle.
Anyway, let us actually talk about this because just like how the West is meddling with Eastern Europe, China is meddling in Iran. This is realpolitik. This is geopolitics. Welcome to it, everyone. That's my final thought.
Yeah, what of it?
Yeah, it's like, so what? I mean, it's also
You
like
might as well
Russia.
to Earth.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Russia invaded Ukraine. It's like, okay, and it's like, who couldn't see that coming? It's like that's literally Russia's
Well, no,
backyard.
I just mean like the concept of geopolitics. Like,
Whatever.
it's a thing. To take it into account.
I mean, but also geopolitics is retarded, especially for plebeians to worry about, because honestly, what we say does not matter. They are going to do what they want. So, yeah, I'm very pessimistic actually, like, caring about geopolitics because I mean, if you say, "Oh, I belong to like the realist school," or "I belong to like the liberal school of like geopolitics," it's like, yeah, well, that doesn't matter. Like, none of that matters because you can analyze geopolitics all day, but what happens in the world is honestly up to the whims of finance, state power, and the ideological goals of whichever state you're referring to or whichever nations you're referring to. And
So
not every nation
geopolitics.
Yeah, not every state acts in its rational self-interest, unlike some people try to say that every nation does, which is not really true. There's a lot of nations that don't act within their own national self-interest. Just look at the Germans supporting Ukraine and canceling Nord Stream 2. That wasn't in their national strategic self-interest.
Oh, look at us allowing
Okay,
thousands of
hold
migrants
on.
to blow across the border.
I
Yeah, that's true.
think I think it is in the West's interest to make things difficult for Russia.
You're speaking at this from an American point of view, where you have an ocean between you. Germany doesn't have large productions of natural gas they can tap into. They have to purchase it from outside powers. And
Yes, this is why.
guess who's the most reliable partner in that case? Oh, it's been Russia for literally decades.
Well, yes,
And
which
then
is why it's
America says to
stupid that
turn
they've
off
been
the
relying
taps.
on Russia.
Yeah, but
It's
also like
why
Germany's been
they
trying
have
to
been
split
relying
away
on
from America, and I don't blame them for wanting to split from America
well,
geopolitically.
considering the you will yes, because considering though that the what that winds up meaning, forming some kind of neoliberal super state, I would say you definitely should blame them for it.
Just
I
to because Prussian Dixie has just joined us, we are going to get back to Hurricane Ian for a split second, then we will go back to our discussion. So, Prussian, you lost power for a little bit. Was that related to?
No, it wasn't power. It was basically my Wi-Fi and internet connection was terrible all for earlier today due to because I got hit with kind of the outskirts of Hurricane Ian, and also funny thing was the community college that I went to was the only school in the entire county that was still open. Oh, that was fun. So I
gotta
had to
keep that indoctrination going.
I gotta drive all the way into school. That was fun. It was when I was freaking trying to get back into my car, my freaking rain shade got stuck, and I had to stand there for 30 seconds trying to get it down. And by the time I got into my car, I was soaked. That was fun.
You know, we all
But
make sacrifices.
but then I got Chick-fil-A, so it was okay.
I mean,
Have any of you
So,
had Chick-fil-A? Hold on, I'm sorry, but have any of
never.
you
I've
had
never
Chick-fil-A?
had
Yes,
Chick-fil-A.
I've had Chick-fil-A, but I have to
yes, I
drive like 4 hours to get to one.
Yeah, there's like nothing out west. That's why I hated living in California because I lived like in the center part, and the nearest one was all the way in LA, and I hated it. But Charles,
so
I'm sorry that you.
back to the actual topic we were discussing. So, Koshendorf were debating, I believe it was media sources regarding Russia and Ukraine.
I wasn't debating much there, other than just saying I
No,
don't think RT is something you should consider particularly more trustworthy. Where they
Well, I'm not saying
Westerns,
it's more trustworthy.
one is going to be one way, the other's going to be the other.
yeah, and I just don't. I'm so jaded against our own media. So
What I would say is take the Ukrainian source and the Russian source, and then just find what's in between, and that's probably your best bet.
yeah, and
I would
I don't
say
take the side of
take.
Ukraine at all. So
I
Of
mean,
course you don't. I wouldn't expect you to.
yeah,
I take the side of the first country that offers me like a packet of cookies and and a 2 liter of pop. Like whichever country offers me that first, I will be the stooge for. I am only like I tell my coworker, I am only a rat for the people who give me cheese.
so you're
Understandable.
Zelensky. You're Zelensky then.
I-
Like,
we went to the same. No, I'm joking. No,
You went to the same
I mean,
acting school?
well, hey, I don't know. I don't know how good of an actor he is, but to call me an
I mean, he was
actor
in like
is.
multiple. I mean, he was in like kind of multiple like high-profile films in Ukraine, though.
Oh well, I don't know. To call me an actor is sort of I don't know. It's sort of an affront to acting. It would sort of be like
What?
calling Calculon an actor. Dramatic pause. Anyways,
so, are we finished with this are we finished with this topic?
I guess if anyone has anything to say on the whole Iran versus Persia name debate,
I mean, what
No
is there to
comment.
say? They call them.
Persia is the name specifically for the Persians, which is the main ethnic group in Iran, which is the more inclusive imperial name, because that was the name taken on by the empire. Was instead of saying Persian, which is just one group, they are all Iranian.
Persian. The Persian is a term that comes from the Greeks. Like the Iranians have always called themselves Iran or some like older version which Iran is derived.
Yeah, but we also don't. I mean, in the English-speaking world, most people don't call Germany Deutschland, so it's like
Yes, like I don't know, Iran asked nicely, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
I don't know what I forget like what Iran was called under the Shah. If it was called Iran or if they called it Persia, because I've
I
heard
think it was.
both.
It was called Persia, but in the 1930s, like the Shah asked if like could you guys maybe call it Iran, but like about the only thing that happened was the Anglo-Persian Oil Company changed its name to the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and then in Britain they tried for like 5 minutes to start calling it Iran, and then I think Churchill came back into power or came into power as prime minister for the first time. Is like, yeah, we're just gonna go back to calling it Persia, and then it was that way until the into that way. It was that way until the revolution happened, essentially. But I think that's how it happened. I mean,
oh,
it was sort of like with like all the Chinese city names where it's like we would call Beijing Peking, which is because we went off the way people in like Hong Kong would have it when their dialect of Chinese, and that's we applied that to the rest of China. But then the Chinese government was like, "Could you maybe not?" But we didn't. I don't think we really took them seriously until they had nukes. Um, or it was the 70s that did it.
I mean, it's still basically the same thing in the end of it all, though.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just like to troll the Chinese. So I like the red Chinese. So I like to use the old pronunciation. Plus, 55 days in Peking sounds a lot better than 55 days in Beijing.
Yeah, it does.
Bum 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 bum
Bum
bum
bum
bum
bum
bum
bum
bum
bum
bum.
bum.
Oh, we're getting too close to the dangerous two people singing at one rule. We promise not to do that.
Well,
so
you got to
let's
cross that one off of the bingo board, though.
Yeah.
so let
Yeah.
us. So, does anybody have any final thoughts on this before we get to a sort of more intellectual topic?
I think everybody said everything.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess final thought. No more Islamic Republic. Islamic Republic bad. Well, Republic in general bad, but Islamic Republic even worse flavor of Republic.
All republics are evil,
Yeah.
unordained by God. They must be purged in holy fire.
Is that purgatory? No. All right.
No,
So,
I was making a K reference, but whatever.
well, I never played any 40k material.
Well, you don't need to play
Neither
40K
have I.
anymore.
Yeah.
you can entertain yourself in the media of 40K. You don't have to like play the tabletop anymore because they have like video games, they have TV
We've had
shows.
video games for like over a decade.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I
I
know.
know.
It's just
But
I've never gotten around to it. And in
Whoa!
fairness, I know Alien's dumb, so I don't need to play a game to tell me Alien's dumb and need to be mass genocide.
yeah, but you get to be like super uber jacked space knights while doing it, while purging them. So
I mean, I don't know. I kind of like the grunt infantrymen. That's the romantic
like
soldier
the
ideal that I
guardsmen.
empathize with. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
they're
Imperial
cool
Guardsmen.
too, especially the
Yeah, I
Deathcore Krieg.
I just
Of course,
I
you
like.
like the Discord.
Yeah, of course I do. I I'm actually I have some models on the way of Deathcore, so
Mm. And if any aliens from Omicron Persei 8 want to comment on my words, I don't know if you actually exist, and if you do have a rational soul, apparently I'm not allowed to be uh, racist against you because you would be equal in dignity. But aliens don't exist. The Pope, one pope. Like what's one guy actually said was is he thought that there might be people on another continent that we don't know about, and this was before we discovered America. But by the time that message got to Rome, the Pope thought that he said there's life on other planets because they got because they muddled in communication, and the Pope's like, yeah, that's dumb. So I don't know.
Well,
I
didn't
so
one of the recent popes made a statement about it. It's not like it's something the church considers possible.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, in all honesty, I consider the prospect of alien life, like, I mean, the prospect of alien life with rational souls, limit. I don't really consider that much of a possibility. Like random alien life on, like, if God wants us to colonize other planets and like humanity survives long enough to do that, I could maybe see, like, native species of, like, fluffy ground roly polies or whatever on other planets. But I don't really see um I don't really see, like, other rational beings because I mean, and then of course the question is these other rational beings would have had to been created separate from Adam and Eve, maybe at the same time, but did they fall too? Because if they didn't fall, then they
Well, who
wouldn't.
knows?
Yeah, that's I don't know.
I mean,
I don't really
that's kind of
consider
the
it much of
thing. The like all over religious stuff is specifically about humanity. Aliens presumably have there if there is an intelligent race of aliens, they would presumably have their own relationship with God is separate from our relationship with God. However, what you're missing here is the potential hilarity, I suppose, in a sense, of the possibility of us finding intelligent life, and it turns out they're also monotheists,
Yeah, I mean, well,
and
I
just
think
the
that
immediate validation that would inevitably result in.
yeah, I don't know. I think that if there was intelligent life and they hadn't fallen, I think it would become pretty obvious pretty quick that we worship the same deity. Um, but yeah, I don't know. That's not a question that I really like to. The space science fiction, I imagine, just doesn't. I don't know that I may or may not write one day. Kind of ignores the concept of aliens. I don't know. It's
I'm
just
I mean, if you want my take on this, I probably say because I believe in the cyclical view of history, I believe that we are entering into a winter phase of civilization, and we're going to be going into. I do believe we are in a dark age because spiritually and morally we are in a dark age. I don't really care about technology. Technology
That
can ebb and flow throughout time, and there are evidence that there were civilizations before we even have written record of any. So that that comes into
such
to
as
cycles where well, if there have been cycles where there have been more advanced human beings than there are now, so or even like comparable, or you know what I
No, I
mean?
actually,
Like,
I know a bit about this. That would be incredibly unlikely because essentially, if there were, they almost certainly would have gone through steps in their societal process similar to ours, left not written records, but like things that they made behind that wouldn't have decayed. That like plastics, we would have found that.
well, I mean, like us. I'm not saying like exactly like us, but you know what I mean by there being advanced civilizations that we do not know about, and we are on another cycle. Kind of what every civilization says, that there's a cyclical view of history. I tend to prescribe to that theory of history.
I mean,
Which,
I don't, because like the cyclical view of history, I think is fine when it comes to like examining how societies like fall because I think there is a common pattern with that because they become so decadent. But when it comes to salvation history, it's a very clear, uh, Adam and Eve sin, and then you have the entire history and the covenant,
etc.
and then you have Christ, and he enters the world, and that's the New Testament, and that's the covenant that we'll have until the end of time, when the world ends. So I mean, it's not like that process repeats over and over again. So I mean, I think a cyclical view of history makes sense in a lot of areas, but when it comes to salvation history, I don't think that holds up.
I mean, there is also an interpretation that the Holy Roman Empire was the 1,000 years of Christ's reign on Earth. There is that view, which I'm not saying I prescribe to that, but I'm just saying that there are people that do take that interpretation in a more
I also
metaphorical rule of Christ.
I think I, the idea of saying Dark Age is a little nonsensical unless you're just not really using the term correctly.
Well, what do you prescribe as the correct, in air quotes, interpretation of what a dark age is?
Well, the Dark Age was the time in between the fall of the Western Empire, more or less,
Okay,
and
okay, no, I'm not
more or less
saying
around the time of the
I'm not
Roman.
saying the dark age. I'm saying a dark age, not
Well,
the dark age, because that does refer to no,
there is
the
only
bronze
the
age,
Dark Age. You don't,
the bronze
A
age collapse is
Darther,
also considered a dark age
okay, that's fair.
too.
But basically, what a Dark Age is essentially a time period that we don't have many records, written records of, because nobody was
But
writing anything.
that's also that's a scientific definition of it. I'm talking about it spiritually. I'm not talking about it scientifically.
There
I'm not
is
talking
no
about, oh, was
spiritual
there records
element
or
to
anything.
the term.
No, there are multiple ways of using that term. There are spiritual ways, and then there are scientific ways. Scientific ways are, yes, the way you described it, yada yada yada. But then in a spiritual way, a dark age means a lack of spirituality, general decadence of a society, and the decline of a civilization, and ultimately to
I'm
its
just,
collapse.
I think I'm not aware of any, like, I'm not aware of that being established.
Okay, well, we're going to be going on to books that we recommend, and I'm going to recommend a lot of good books to go on that will pretty much validate my point on we are in a dark age, not the dark age.
Okay. Well, that is, of course. Does anyone have any objections to a rapid change of pace?
Right.
I have
To be
absolutely
clear,
zero objection. Thank you, Darv.
Well,
I
okay.
just wanted to say I don't disagree with your description of the timeline. I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay.
I think we've established a pattern. Even when you two agree, you can't help but argue. No, I'm joking, and I can't help but get in the middle of it. Okay. So Prussian, do you have any final thoughts on?
No.
Okay. Yeah, Prussian. Oh, Leon, he's here now.
Hello.
Hello, Leon. Communicate.
I don't know.
Okay.
You hear me?
So think of
Right.
something quick before we move on to our last.
Darth, you have essentially a library of books that you would recommend, but because you have a lot of books in your library, I'm going to limit you to just a couple.
So, I mean, yeah, I own a library. Some of the stuff I don't recommend for the average reader because some of it really does get into very mystical, very abstract ideas that especially very rationally minded people probably they wouldn't get anything out of it. Um in terms of authors I recommend for understanding historiography, the interpretation of history and the understanding of historical cycles, I would recommend Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West. It is an absolutely massive tome. It was written in 2 volumes. The first volume was released in 1917, and the second volume was released in 1922. Oswald Spengler was a German historiographer that pretty much explored every single major civilization, pointing out the cyclical nature um uh, history and he related them to the seasons essentially that civilizations are they go through seasonal cycles. They go through the springtime, which is the initial growth of the civilization when the civilization has its most energy, has its most determination and striving towards greatness and glory, and they're fairly well unified. Then you go into the summer, which is also called the civilization age, where people start trying to abstract everything in their society, and you start seeing divisions within that. A gradual. It's not a collapse, but it's like a plateau of the civilization's potential. Then you get to the fall time, and the fall time is when you start seeing massive ages of decadence and the slow erasure of civilizations. And then in the winter, that's the total collapse and when a civilization dies. I mean, you see this happen all across the world all the time. So that's why I recommend Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West. Another great book, especially for monarchists, this is a really easy introductory one, would be The Innocence of Kaiser Wilhelm II, especially if you take a very different view to history and if you tend to be a bit more nuanced, also very sympathetic to historical monarchs. The Innocence of Kaiser Wilhelm II is also a great book. Dante Alighieri, the famous writer of the Divine Comedy, he also wrote a book called De Monarchia, essentially laying out essentially like the ideal Christian monarchy and why Christian monarchy is the most legitimate form of government known to man. All other forms of government are secondary and, quite frankly, illegitimate. Um, what else is good? I mean, also go into the classics as well, like read the Divine Comedy. Um, uh, Goethe's like if you just want like a fun tale through hell, purgatory, and heaven, even though it may not be theologically correct of what all those places are, um, it still is a very good tale and part of the Western canon of literature. Um, the Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. Those are also really good works I recommend for everybody. It's kind of, I kind of say it's like the postmodernist view of Satan, where it's like, well, what if Satan was the good guy? But either way, it's still good literature.
It was. I will say that was put on the index of forbidden books,
I know it was, but if
or just
you,
Milton was in general.
well, yeah, but if you have let's just say if you have a more iron grip mind and able to look beyond that and know what is and just enjoy it for the literature, that you can do that. I do recommend people read it. Machiavelli's The Prince. I would recommend for anybody who needs to understand how power politics actually works. Like, it's a great introduction to Italian elite theory. Um, Julius Evola, he has several books. Revolt Against the Modern World is a great introductory book. It was his magnus opus that he wrote initially in 1934, but then he re-released in 1969, shortly before his death, because he had some updates post World War II. And he was actually paralyzed in World War II during a bombing as well, by an American bombing in I forget which exact city. But he's really good, especially for traditionalists and people on the general non-mainstream right that knows that this world is fundamentally corrupt and evil. He pretty much points out like how the traditional world functioned. He talks about things like even chivalry and all that. He talks about Buddhism. He talks about Christianity. He talks about every tradition across the world. He is kind of like a scholar of everything, and he just knew a lot. But Revolt Against the Modern World is a great introductory book. He also has other books like, say, Ride the Tiger, essentially how to survive in this decadent age. Men Amongst the Ruins, which essentially was his delving into the ashes of the civilization post World War II. He wrote that like right afterwards. He also he has books on metaphysics that are also really good. Um, what else? Um, yeah, those are some major titles I recommend. I'm trying to think of any more at the top of my head. Um, yeah, I would start with those. You can generally branch out from there. I'd also recommend, like, if you go to Academic Agent YouTube channel, he generally also has some really good book recommendations, and he has like an entire list of like the Western canon, what you should be reading and what you should avoid reading. Um, Also, like, get into like Shakespeare and all that because it's also part of our tradition. Like, enjoy media. Don't like always delve into like serious topics. Like, you can go into these other fields.
I will say
Yes.
that as much as like Catholic Anglos like to rag on Anglo in general. Remember, we could do stuff once, and Shakespeare kind of was a lingering remnant. Some people like to hypothesize he was a crypto Catholic, but he kind of was like very much. Apparently, he was influenced by that, last vestige of Catholic England. So remember, we Anglos, we used to do stuff. Well,
I
I
mean,
say
relative
Oh,
to
oh,
like a
oh!
lot of
Also, that
versions.
that, that reminds me. That reminds me. Another book. Saint Sir Thomas More's Utopia. That you said. You said English Catholics, and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, Saint Sir Thomas More.
All right. If you're done, then okay, that was kind of rude. If you're done, no.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is Darth will have to take a picture of his entire library, and then we'll no. And then just mirror his library exactly. Do not deviate from the Darth program. No. So, so, oh, Prussian. Do you have what are some of your book recommendations? What do you recommend to the masses to consume?
I don't really have anything, to be honest. I usually don't really read books very often, sadly.
Yeah, I books is good. Yeah. Okay. Koshin, what are some of your recommendation data book?
Uh, I don't really have any there.
Okay. I guess it comes down to me. Well, not down to me, but I will say that as general refer. Well, I mean, obviously, I mean this kind of goes without saying, but Catholic Edition Bible. I mean, obviously, but if you're looking for something that's
And a catechism to go along with
oh,
it.
a Catholicism, yeah. But if you are looking for something that's easy to read, um, uh, Charles Coulomb has his book like Puritan's Empire, which is a good like Catholic understanding of American history, and his book The White Cockade I can recommend. His book Blessed Emperor Carl, well, Blessed Charles of Austria. I don't know why he says Charles. His book
Hey, he
Charles.
stole mine.
Oh well. No. So he has a lot of they're very easy, very fast reads, but they're very info packed. And then I will say, a copy of Lies of the Saints. I really do need to get back into the habit of reading, one of the Lies of the Saints every day. But I will say, for reference, you should have a copy of Heinrich Denzinger's Compendium of Creeds, Definitions, and Declarations on Matters of Faith and Morals, which is usually just called the Denzinger because he was the guy who
Well, look.
who's still? He told me not to. He told me not to say the book. Whoops. Okay, I didn't hear that. Ping. But anyways, so yeah. So that's a good to have. It has all of the various ecumenical councils, and it was the book I read out of earlier. But it also has various encyclicals from the Pope. From, well, not the Pope, but popes throughout the years. Um, and it has a lot of good stuff, even like from the very early days of like the church fathers, where it's like one of the 200s or 300s or something. It has something on the primacy of the Holy See, so you can wow your Orthodox friends with that. Um, but so that's a good thing to have reference. As in terms of books to read, like for entertainment purposes, I'm sure I can recommend The Lord of the Rings, but I haven't read. But the last time I read that when I was like 8 or whatever with my dad, so I probably wasn't able to comprehend the full beauty of it. But I have recently reread The Hobbit. That is a very good movie. The movies were terrible. No, the well, I mean, I don't know. I tolerated their existence. I wasn't very enthralled by them though. But the book is very good. It make sure that when you're reading it, that you either are next to someone who doesn't mind you singing, or you're not going to bother anyone, because those elven songs are kind of catchy. Well, and the dwarf songs and all that, because
Or
Tolkien was a
just don't
poet.
sing them and more like hum them as like a rhyme.
Yeah, I guess. But Tolkien was a poet. Um, let's see. And then I guess, I mean, this is back to Charles Colomb, but Star Spangled Crown, it's kind of a narrative for the first part. I'm not going to spoil it, but that's just introduction for the author to kind of explain how the American monarchy came to be in the book. Which Charles Colm admits, if we're going to get a monarchy, it's probably not going to be by that way. Which, given, anyways, I'm not going to spoil it. Just buy the book. You can get free shipping on orders of $25 or more. Be the first on your block. No.
No
Let's see. What are some
CODs?
other? Oh, some assembly required. Let's see. Where's some other? I'm reading Great Expectations. So far, that's good. I went into that blind. I don't really have much of an idea. I didn't read any description of what it is. I just knew it was a Charles Dickens book, and that was all I knew. That's all I knew going in. So I'm at the end of the first stage of Pip's expectations. Um, let's see. What are some looking around some of the books I have? Let's see. The Hardy Boys, the couple of those I read were good, but I wouldn't. Can't really recommend anything else specific. Oh, actually, the Myth Inc. series, which I don't know how easy that is to find. It's one of these. Um, I mean, it reads like comedic sci-fi, even though it's kind of fantasy. I don't know. It kind of blurs the line. Um, there actually is a good depiction of how the monarch works. So like, this is spoilers to skip ahead for the next couple minutes if you actually want to read it, because the books they're generally clean, but there are some things you're gonna want to just flip the page on. Um, but do you have these two like the king's servants? You have General Hugh Badaxe, and you have the chancellor, whose name escapes me right now, and they really hate each other. But at like the last like book where they're like major characters, um they will like they kind of like join together, and like you like in like service of the throne, and are like, and they tell the magician that, yeah, you really shouldn't be rude to the king, even if the king really deserved to be yelled at in this instance, because he was kind of being whatever. So that sense of noble duty to the throne was kind of on point. So even if the king really, I don't know. You'll read the book. It is kind of funny. Um, so yeah, I guess that's. I mean, the other books I've read, Men of Iron, I read that years ago with my dad. A lot of books I'd recommend I read with my dad years
Oh,
ago.
also, speaking of Iron, The Storm of Steel by Ernst Jünger, and
I
his
was waiting for you to mention that.
yeah, that, and also Ernst Jünger in general, like he has a lot more works. Like I'd recommend also a story. I mean, stories and essay. It's very short, called On Pain. Where essentially, yeah, if you don't struggle in your life, you're not going to develop into a true man. And that's and he like talks about like the metaphysics of pain in that. He also there's one called the Force Passages, where essentially he tells you like this deck. He wrote this after World War II, um, and he was very, let's just say, of the new German puppet regime. So yeah, he pretty much advocates for complete separation from decadent society in that one.
Okay. And I guess I will. Yeah, I'll stop now and then think of something to talk about later and interject very rudely. So Vic, after I accidentally said the thing that you were gonna say.
Yeah, okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is give you guys a quick. My personal selection of books I think you should read is going to be a bit more along the lines of of like a range of things. The first book that I would recommend any American to read if they have the time, and I'm sure that some of you in our studio audience, and in fact, I know that one of you in our studio audience has read de Tocqueville's masterful work on American democracy that he wrote when he visited America from France in the early days of our nation. It is a very interesting book that details what America was really like in that time period. And it is incredibly interesting. The next book that I would like you guys to read, if you, because obviously, if you want to read everything else that Darth Kilhoun has suggested to you, then you're going to want to read Aristotle, especially his Politics and his Nicomachean Ethics. Those two are essentially the foundation for Western thought. And those books actually lead us into the Catholic philosophical concept of Thomism, which I'm not going to get into here.
Yeah, Saint Thomas Aquinas. I mean that's a big nut to crack. Like I mean, I have delved into Saint Thomas Aquinas, but his Soma, yeah. Unless you're a theologian, you're not going to make it all the way through that. Also
Absolutely.
Saint Augustine's City of God is also really good tome, but it's also super long. Um, what else? Yeah, that's also another big theological work. Um,
Right.
Also,
But
read the saints in general. I recommend. There's a lot of saints that are authors.
well, yes, there are a lot of Catholic saints that are authors. I wasn't even going to get into them. Thank you for that, Darth. Uh, so after Aristotle, I think it is prudent, at least if you are truly of a philosophical mind, to read the philosophers that helped shape the minds of the people that founded our nation in order to get into their heads a little bit. Reader discretion is advised, etc., etc. But of the other stuff that I would want to get into, that I would really recommend for anyone to read, well, Mr. York said Tolkien. I will say the other one, C.S. Lewis. Also a good fantasy novel writer. Tolkien and Lewis will get you through lots of rainy days, power outages, and hurricanes.
Act now to get 20% off from Scholastic. Use code not an
Yeah.
actual ad at checkout.
Yeah. It is not an
And
actual
also don't
ad.
buy from Scholastic. Anyway,
Okay. Okay. Let us continue on with my personal, like, the highest recommendation that I can give outside of writings like the Bible, which everybody should read by default, even if you're not a Christian, to get a sense of what sort of, shall we say, Judeo-Christian society was
No,
based on.
never add Judeo before Christian.
Okay.
Never.
Okay. Okay.
That's a
Okay.
mythology that came around
Apologies,
after.
or Christian society was
Yes.
built off of. Apologies, Darth. The highest recommendation I can give to you is friend of the podcast, Charles Colombs, Blessed Charles of Austria, in which he describes, well, not just the life of Emperor Karl of Austria, but also some charitable donations that the Habsburgs have made, one of which was to St. Mary, Mother of God in D.C., but also to the National Shrine of Santa Martha's Liguori in downtown Baltimore. And there have been other monarchs that have done so, such as Queen Anne, who, by the way, was the last British monarch to deny royal assent to a law. One of those laws to which she denied the royal assent was a law prohibiting Catholicism in Maryland.
it was the last time that a monarch in England refused royal assent.
And yes, Vincent, thank you. Asimov. Asimov is another writer that I would recommend, as well as Dostoevsky, as well as War and Peace. I
Also for Russian authors, Reflections on a Russian Statesman is also a really good. It's a very short book, but that's also really good.
Yes, and fun fact, I had to write a book report in 8th grade that was an incredibly long assignment, or at least at the time I thought it was a long assignment. So I decided that because my writing style is do not fluff, just get in, say what you need to say and get out, I decided to do it on War and Peace. That was an incredibly long read. And I
I
got
mean,
through that whole thing.
yeah,
Anyway,
I'm the exact opposite. I like to waffle on and give unnecessary detail, as I'm sure you're all aware. Like I just did by interjecting myself into that statement when I didn't need to.
yeah.
Case in
Right.
point.
So, and of course, I think that I'm going to give this particular recommendation a limited recommendation because it has no usage outside of Catholic thought, but John Paul II's Theology of the Body basically details in a very, shall we say, essay format Catholic sexual ethics. So I will recommend that to anybody that is Catholic that needs a refresher on that particular subject.
Because we all
And
know how well the Catholic school system teaches these things.
God, you guys keep on like jargoning my memory. Also, venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen has many books. I tend to like them. He has like a biography on his life. He like talks about certain parts of, like the Gospels as well. Those are also
yes,
really good.
there are a lot of Bible commentaries out there. You feel free to purchase one at your leisure. I will not recommend a specific one to you.
But
I
I'm
will.
gonna be heading out for the night. Good night.
Thank you, Darth. Thank you very much, Darth, for the recommendation for the topic itself.
Yep.
And my final recommendation to you is going to be the Sword and Serpent book series by Dr. Taylor Marshall. It is a very good fantasy sort of telling of the story of St. George slaying the dragon. And that is my list of book recommendations. Some of them have my full recommendation for a general audience, others have more of a niche audience.
Yeah, and I will say that with books, it's okay that you read something and you don't necessarily like it, because not every genre is for everyone, and so long as you're reading good books, whatever genre you prefer. But I will say, read, 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 read. Try to. It's hard, I know. Just try to put down the video game and read. So okay. So yeah, I guess Leon now. Do 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 do. Oh, okay.
I have no recommendations. I did not know this was happening, and I don't read.
Okay, so that's like 3 for 6. That's a 50%. That's a
Yeah,
50%
I'm kind of
recommendation.
in the same thing as Leon right now. It's the fact I don't really read. Like the only thing I really read is like my Bible, and then like I've been trying to freaking get through Charles Colombe's book, Star Spangled Crowns, but I just keep on forgetting to finish it.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're all going to mentally pick a book that you are reading um right now, or a book that you want to start. And this is for everyone in the audience. This is for everyone in the YouTube audience. And our last episode will be recorded for in October. Our last episode will be recorded on the 28th, and it will go live on the 31st, which is great. So by the end of that month, we should have, depending on the size of the book, either we should have significant progress in that book, or we will hopefully have finished it. And we're gonna set ourselves a goal to at least read. We're going to try our best to plow through at least a chapter a day. Of course, if your chapters, like some authors make their chapters like an author may make a chapter like 50 pages long. Obviously, at that point, just a reasonable section, like at least 5 pages. Okay, let's do that. At least 5 pages a day, uh, until the end of the month. Challenge yourself to do that, and you don't have to say what book you want, what book you're reading. I will try to get through as much of Great Expectations as I can. I am about to start chapter 20, the journey from our little town to the from the metropolis. See, there you go. I started chapter 20. There you go. See, I'm already getting started. I'm already ahead of you guys. Ha 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 ha. No. So there you go. So that. So, um, okay. So pick a book, do it. Don't tell me. I don't know, but I will beat you if you don't. Okay. Um. Yeah. I guess are we all done with this topic? And do we really want to talk about what the vice president is doing?
I think I'm no brain in this.
Huh? You kind of were cutting out until like the very end. What did you say?
You were basically underwater until the last second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said anything but books.
Okay. Well, read. Anyways, okay. So, so yeah, do we really want to talk about the vice president or no?
Mm,
Because I'll be honest with you guys, I have a vested interest in wrapping this up as soon as possible, but I'm not going to force it.
all right, let's wrap it up then.
Well, Prussian Leon, do you guys want to do
Whatever.
anything?
I mean, you guys are kind of just the ones in charge. Just get on with it.
Okay, Leon, do you have
Yeah,
any?
what you said.
Okay, I didn't really hear what you said. All I heard was get on with it. So, all right. So it's now time for my favorite part of the show, my inconsistent rambling outro. Okay, brought to you by Sunoco. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so if you would like to join us live on Monarchist a Minute, you can join our Discord in the description below to listen to us live. And hey, if we like you in the server, you may eventually become one of our glorious guest stars. And join the likes of us, and you can be sleep deprived too. Uh, let's see. Link to that in our description below. You will also find a link to our Gab, which is Twitter, but for neocons. So is it really that much of an improvement? I don't know. You will also find a link to our Twitter, our Facebook group, our Instagram, and many other exciting options. When by that I think I mean the website and and I think that may be it. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So
Well,
you can peruse that. If I missed any social media outlet, it'll be in the description.
yeah,
But now,
and of course, I know that this will be out in October, but we are recording in September and we had to miss a week because of the Queen's death, so I will tack this on. September is the National Suicide Prevention Month. If you or someone you know is experiencing or has experienced suicidal thoughts or tendencies, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline or use their text number or use their online chat feature on their website. Thank you very much for doing your part in preventing suicide.
okay, and now it is time we conclude in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Until next week, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.